Hello again. Frank here. I wanted to take a second, or a few minutes anyways, to talk about this, which is the 2005 Pontiac Vibe GT, and why would you or anyone else want to buy one of these? So, yeah, pretty much let's just get into it. It is just that. It's a 2005 Pontiac Vibe GT. This one is my personal Pontiac Vibe GT. I've only had it maybe 4-ish months. I put not quite 5,000 miles on it. And so I do have a little bit of perspective on the car. What's good, what's bad, what's great. And really with this car, it's a lot of good. There's not a whole lot of great. There's not a whole lot of bad. It's very much a jack of all trades, ace of none, really more than anything else. So for those that are uninitiated to the world of the Pontiac Vibe GT, this is effectively a 2005 Toyota Matrix XRS, which itself is mostly based on Toyota Corolla XRS. So yes, it is a Pontiac, but really just in brand engineering only. These were built in Fremont, California, in the NUMMI plant, where GM and Toyota shared a space and they shared production, which is now neither of those. Neither of those vehicles are being produced there. It since has been bought by Tesla, and that's where all the Teslas here in North America are coming from. So this is a Pontiac Vibe, but it's really a Toyota Matrix, which is really a Toyota Corolla. It's a little convoluted, but ultimately the good part about all that, it is a, well, it's a Toyota. It's got a Toyota engine, Toyota transmission. Almost everything in this vehicle is Toyota. There are a couple of things. Some of the switchgear is more GM. If you end up with a more base model than this one, the more basic stereos are just Delco, GM Delco units. And so there is definitely a little bit of GM sprinkled in here, but it's mostly just the badges. You know, some of the styling is Pontiac of the era, but through and through it's a Toyota product. With that comes Toyota product fit and finish and reliability. You know, it is a fair amount of hard plastics and stuff, but it's bolted together well. It's screwed down tight. It's put together like a Toyota Corolla. And the engine, the drivetrain are all Toyota. In fact, this is the same motor, the 2ZZGE, that Toyota put in the Corolla XRS, the Matrix XRS, the Celica GTS, and most famously in the Lotus Elise. So it does have a little bit of pedigree there, even though it kind of looks like a tiny wagon meets minivan kind of egg-shaped creation. Told, it very much is a jack of all trades, ace of none. Any kind of example of another vehicle from this era that you would compare it to, this is basically just a more practical version thereof. You know, maybe you would compare it to a GTI of, you know, a four-door GTI of the era. I would say this is more practical, more reliable, not quite as sporting. Same with like an Integra GSR sedan, which is a little older than this, but same kind of deal. High revving engine, has some power, but not a ton of power. You have to wind it out. Has 4 doors, but is more practical. It's a little newer. It's a hatch. Even you know, even a Civic Si of that era, with the shape of this car and with some of the features that it has with regards to this example, has navigation. It's got the seat, the passenger front seat that will fold completely flat to be like a workspace or a workstation. It has an accessory plug in the front, so you can plug any household item into it. If you want to toast and go, you can do that. You know, the hard plastics in the rear, in the cargo area, it's made so you can't scrape up. It's got integral tie-down hooks and such, and the rear flat folding rear seats is a nice feature, also with a hard plastic back, some built-in cup holders and little things like that that really make it more practical than everything else that was really available at the time. You know, if you're looking for something that is more of a one-car solution, you know, everyone likes to talk about the 2-car solution. If you can have a fun car and a practical car, what would you have? Well, that's a luxury I think most people actually can't afford. People like to talk about it as car people. We like to talk about the two-car solution. You know, realistically for most people, that's not really an option. And so I think if you have to have a one-car solution and not spend, you know, $25,000, $35,000, you need something on a bit of a budget that is reliable, will get you to work and back, does get, you know, 30 plus miles a gallon pretty consistently on the freeway, but is fun to drive on a weekend, or if you find yourself on a twisty road or getting on the on-ramp, you can wind it out and still have a little bit of fun. I think this is kind of the ultimate one-car solution car on a budget, and that's why you would buy this car. You don't buy this car as your weekend warrior. You don't buy this car because you have aspirations of tracking this car every weekend. That's not why you would buy something like this. You buy this because you need something that's a reliable daily driver, that is super practical, not a ton of money, and is still fun. It's still fun to have, you know, take out on a twisty road. It's just a fun, practical vehicle. Also, it's a little bit of an unknown. A Pontiac Vibe GT. You know, it doesn't have the same cachet even as a Toyota Corolla or a Toyota Matrix. If you talk about how you daily drive your Pontiac Vibe, unless they're deep into the woods of cardom, they're not necessarily really going to know what it is or what you're talking about. Which is kind of fun. If you're into that thing, great. If you want to fly under the radar, great. If you want to take it to a Cars and Coffee and have people say, wait, is that a Vibe? And then they see the 6-speed, and then they start asking questions. That's another reason why you would own a car like this. So it does, you know, have a really revvy little motor. You really have to wind it out and keep it on boil, so to speak, because most of the power it's making is deep into the 6,000 RPM range. It doesn't really truly wake up until you're like 6,700, 6,800 RPM. And then you can hear the cam changeover. You can hear it come alive. And you have to really run it clean, almost right up in the red line and in a fuel cutout to really keep it happy, which is kind of fun. You know, it's a practical car. You know, I've had my 4-year-old in it, in his child seat, and we'll drive around in it and keep it wound out. And to him, it's the fastest car in the world. And it definitely is not the fastest car in the world. It's not particularly fast, but it is sprightly. It is fun to drive. It's fun to keep wound up, and it feels an awful lot faster than it actually is. And ultimately, I think that's the name of the game here, is you have a practical car that is fun to drive and feels fast. Or at least a lot faster than it really is. I don't know that it truly feels fast, but it feels spirited. It feels quicker than it is. It's fun to drive. It's fun to wind out. But yeah, still super duper practical. So as far as, you know, highlights and lowlights, really, the highlights, it's really just value and practicality. When it comes to kind of issues or problems or things I don't particularly like about this car, there really aren't that many. The interior was built at a price point, which just kind of comes with the territory. This was not a high dollar car when it was new. I still have the original window sticker for this car, and it was, you know, $24,000+ in 2005, which, you know, I haven't done the math, but I would think that'd be low $30,000 range, mid $30,000 range today, which is not a ton of money. And the interior was built to that. It was, you know, it's got some hard plastics in here. It has, you know, big switches and stuff that's obviously came out of other Toyota products. And that's fine. That's what you're buying ultimately, is a Toyota product. But, you know, even though there's, you know, stuff built to a price point and some hard plastics in here, it's fine. It's a comfortable place to be, and it's screwed down tightly. It's buttoned up well. So the other stuff that, you know, with regards to that is what I don't really like about it is, you know, I don't particularly love the styling. It's not straight up ugly, you know. It's got a pinch of Aztec in it, though, for lack of a better way to put it. It is a Pontiac, and there are some Pontiac styling cues, which I think have actually aged fairly well. But you look at the wheels with the black center caps, it's got the Pontiac Motor Division script in it, and you've got some of the little side strakes on the bumper covers and such. Yeah, it's a Pontiac. That's really it. There's not a whole lot else to talk about with regards to things this car does poorly. And yeah, so I am going to be really interested in seeing what the outcome of the no reserve auction over at Cars and Bids is going to bring. See what the end result is. If you have an opportunity to comment there in the auction while it's still live, go ahead and do that. If you want to do the whole comment, like, subscribe thing on this video, go ahead and do that. If you want to place a bid on it, please do that. Bid often, bid early, and yeah, it's really interesting to see what the outcome is going to be. So thanks for listening to my 2 cents of life with the Pontiac Vibe GT, why somebody would want to buy such a thing. And yeah, I appreciate you guys tagging along. Cheers.